Howdy, my name is Nonat, and I would like to apologize for a few things. One, if I'm weirdly low energy or kind of stiff in the video, it's because my back has been acting up. I've been going to physical therapy, hopefully it's getting better. None of your concern, just wanted to explain it. The other thing I wanted to apologize is how negative I'm probably going to seem in this video. I know I'm usually the sort of upbeat, energetic, positive guy, but when something doesn't work, you know I don't shy away from talking about how it doesn't work, and I guess there's just a lot of disappointment in what I'm talking about here today. You already clicked the video, you know we're talking about the new crafting rules, and TLDR, I don't think they fixed any of the issues, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But first, y'all, it's time. It has been an arduous 3 years making content here on YouTube, but finally, I have ascended because this video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends, the mobile RPG with console quality graphics, and to celebrate, I'm going to be sharing with you my top 3 places to play Raid Shadow Legends. Wait, is that right? Number 1, in bed. What the? How did I get under here? It's dark. Number 2, in the closet. This isn't better. Number 3, in the shower. Now my phone is broken! Buy a new one. Okay, I got a new phone. Now what? Now download Raid and go to raidlovequest.plarium.com and play a minigame for your chance to win both in-game and real-life prizes. You mean like free money? Technically it is a gift card. Nice, free money? I'm in. Yeah, sure, free money. But also free Valentine-themed champions, and input promo code SaintValentine23 for an additional free gift. Yo, check it out, I just got one. You will spoil the surprise. Let them download Raid Shadow Legends using the QR code that's been on screen literally this entire time. What does that do? Downloading using this link will get you $35 of free stuff. More free money? Yes. Free money, in the form of Yokna, free epic champion, and other useful in-game rewards. Sweet, I'm honestly kind of into this. I even started my own Nonat1's clan that people can join if they download the game. Good for you, little one. Download Raid Shadow Legends today using my link with the QR code above and join my clan. Get raiding! Or it's raiding time. So, why do I dislike the complex crafting rules that have been presented in Pathfinder Treasure Vault? Well, my issue comes from an experience where most of the campaigns I've played in are shorter form adventures, and what I mean by that is not that they are less sessions, but rather they are a grand adventure told over a very small amount of in-game time. Most of the campaigns I've played in have honestly taken place over maybe one in-game month, even if they lasted 2 years. This is typically because both my players and myself really like exploring and getting a lot done. You know, we like exploring towns, we like diving into dungeons a lot, and those can tend to take up multiple sessions of roleplay or combat without time in universe progressing that fast. You know, if everybody in the party visits a new town, they all go shopping, they all meet NPCs, they roleplay with each other, they roleplay with the tavern keeper, we all do some research on items and stuff, that can take up a full session while only taking up about 45 minutes of in-game time. Same thing goes for a dungeon crawl. The idea of moving through a 15-room dungeon might take 3 sessions. However, that only accounts for maybe 2 in-game hours. Just like that, a month of real-world time has passed, but only 2 hours of in-game time has passed. The reason I set all of this up is to lead into my main problem with crafting in Pathfinder 2e. It takes way too long. It takes 4 in-game days minimum to craft an item. Now, I'm going to tackle the main argument right now. That's what downtime is for. You're not expected to craft while adventuring, you're only expected to craft while you are not adventuring,
at home or resting in a city. And that's sort of my gripe. I have players who want to make crafting an integral part of their character. You know, they want to constantly be hammering runes into their weapon or making a new weapon to use without slowing down the adventure. But with the crafting rules as written, that's just not possible. We've even used a sort of variant where during their daily preparations, it counts as one of their 4 days of crafting, but even then it feels horrible when they get to craft one item after maybe 3 months of gameplay for real world time. And then can you imagine if they fail that check? That feels absolutely awful. And I know the comments are going to be full of people saying, well, if you're not giving downtime, that's your fault. And sure, maybe it is, but it's definitely not just me. I would say every single campaign I've taken part in over the last 8 years of my life, either as a player or a GM, have all been very slow paced because that's how we all like to play. So I know this is not an uncommon play style. Hell, I know a campaign that I'm unfortunately not a part of anymore, but I think in the last 2 real world years, it's been about 1 in-game week. The other problem with this kind of campaign is that we like to experience everything the system has to offer, so especially for the first 5 or 6 levels, we're leveling up a lot. You know, my goal is within the first 10 to 15 sessions to get my party to level 5 or 6. Make sure they get those integral feats to make sure they can be a character, similar to like D&D 5e where you might rush to 3rd level. If someone has a really cool idea for a character, but it doesn't really function until this 4th level feat, I like to rush them along through the early game, A, just to get more interesting options for their character, and B, because it's fun. It gets you invested in your character when you can see this progression and then slow it down a little bit, because by that point, they've invested in not only the mechanics of their character, but also the personality and roleplay of that character, so they don't need the levels as much to get that immersion. It's sort of a cheat hack I use as a GM, because it also gets them excited about the campaign. Everybody loves leveling up in a campaign, so you feed them those first few levels really quickly and then slow it down. The reason I bring that up is because if you're trying to craft an item, let's say you're level 2 and you want to craft a +1 greatsword, but unfortunately that's going to take 4 in-game days. And then over the next 3 in-game days, you've gone up 2 or 3 levels. Now that +1 greatsword is useless, and it just doesn't even feel good in PF2 because you just crafted it for half the price of buying it. You spent 4 days making something you could have just purchased. If you're out in the wilderness and you don't have access to a city, sure, that can be useful. But my main problem with crafting is that for short form campaigns, which is the ones I'm describing as very short in-game, even if it's very long real world time, crafting is useless. And I know myself and a bunch of other people were praying complex crafting was going to fix this. Excuse me? Apparently my dog thinks I'm a clown. Unfortunately, complex crafting did not address the issue that most of us were feeling, but I'm going to go over complex crafting to explain how it works to you and list my gripes along the way. The main goal Paizo set out to do with complex crafting was to make consumables specifically a little more attainable to get and use during your adventuring days. However, they also slowed down permanent item crafting. This is because the amount of days it takes to craft something using complex crafting changes based on the item's level relative to your own. You still can't craft anything above your level, and if you're crafting consumables equal to your level, it takes the same 4 days it does now. But if you're crafting something permanent, like a +1 greatsword equal to your level, it now takes 6 in-game days to make it, and it only goes down to 4 in-game days if it's 3 levels lower than you. This means if you're level 5, then you can make that +1 greatsword in 4 days. You know, when you're only a few levels away from getting access to +2 weapons. But there is a caveat. If you're expert, master, or legendary in crafting, you can attempt to increase the difficulty of the craft in order to speed it up by 1, 2, or 3 days respectively. The problem is that this is almost useless unless you're crafting something completely remedial, like a level 1 item if you're level 7. That's because if you're trying to make it more difficult, you're increasing the DC by 5, 10, or even 15 if you're legendary and trying to reduce the crafting time by 3 days. Now, if you're crafting something that's 3 levels or lower from you, that's fine. You can actually reduce the crafting time to, I think, 4 hours or something, which is kind of cool. But if you're trying to craft something equal to your level and you want to make that permanent item in 3 days instead of 6, congrats, you've made this almost impossible because you've increased the DC by 15! Let me paint a picture here for you. You're a level 15 alchemist with a 20 intelligence and legendary crafting. Your proficiency is going to be 15, plus 5 is 20, plus legendary is plus 28. Let's be generous and say you're getting plus 2 from something, like a status bonus or something like that, so you have a plus 30 to your crafting. If you're making a common level 15 item, that's going to have a base DC of 34. Now, if you've got a plus 30, that's easy. You can roll that, no problem. But if you want to make use of your legendary crafting and reduce that days of crafting by 3, suddenly that DC shoots up to 49! You need a 19 on the D20 to even possibly succeed that, otherwise it's a failure, or on a 9 or lower, a crit failure, 8 or lower. And that's a common item. If it's uncommon or, God forbid, rare, it's going to be an even higher DC. I get it, they're trying to make it so you can't automatically succeed at crafting, a philosopher's stone in 3 days or anything like that. But it still feels so bad to increase the DC by 15. I would have said it as increase the DC by 5, and then if you're expert, master, or legendary, you just reduce the number of days by 1, 2, or 3. Increasing the DC by 10 or 15 is just ludicrous unless you're crafting something like 10 levels below you. Which even then, that would be more difficult than crafting something of your level. So what are the benefits of this system? Well, once you're level 7 and master in crafting, if you can handle that plus 10 DC, you can start making consumables every single day, which is really cool. If you have the recipe for elixirs of life, or antidotes, or anything of the sort, you can just start pumping those out, which is kind of neat. You can do this for ammunition as well. There's a lot of potential there. Again, the problem is just that plus 10 DC. But aside from maybe being able to make consumables on the fly while adventuring, I don't know who this complex crafting system is for. It's not really any better or worse than the current crafting system, it's just a little bit more complicated. I feel like most people would rather just have a static 4-day crafting time than a fluctuating crafting time based on consumable versus permanent, based on proficiency, based on how many days you choose to save, thus changing the DC. I really, really dislike this new system. It just made crafting harder to understand. They even added a new skill feat that makes crafting items 6 levels or lower than your level take 3 days less, which then you can reduce with the speed crafting I was talking about earlier. I just don't get it. The reason I'm talking about this so fervently and passionately, honestly, is because the people complaining about crafting weren't complaining about saving 1 or 2 days. They were complaining about not being able to make crafting part of their character if they're in a constantly moving campaign. There's nothing wrong with adding or not adding downtime to your campaign, but if you choose not to add downtime because things are just too fast and too go, 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 because that's how the campaign is written and you really enjoy that speed, it would be nice for these alternate rules to cater to those campaigns. I want to clear the air a little bit because I don't think that should be the standard. There's a reason this is a variant. An alternate rule is to apply to that subsect of campaign in the same way that free archetype is a variant and the weird 10-stage Rubik's Cube alignment chart is a variant rule. It's there to cater to specific tables, not to every table. So for those of you complaining like, oh, 2-day crafting would be unrealistic and broken, like maybe a little bit, but in some ways so is free archetype, depending on the campaign you're running. The reason I'm complaining about this just so fervently is because this didn't fix any of the problems presented by the original crafting system, and it's being presented as an alternate variant rule. So this is not the rules as written way of crafting. This is an option. And that's why I was hoping they would cater to those fast-paced campaigns like I'm so used to. Because it's a variant rule, it would not be the standard. A variant rule, in my opinion, should appeal to a specific type of table. You know, like the stamina variant. A lot of people don't like stamina, but a certain group does, and it makes the game better for that kind of table. That's what I was hoping for the new crafting. Now, I'm not saying, craft an item every single day, but just off the top of my head, maybe like instead of taking 4 days, you can craft something overnight, but then you can't craft again for a while, Give it an in-game cooldown, and let the flavor be that you're getting everything together. You're always working on something, and then every 3 in-game days, you can roll crafting and just choose to finish something, and then it gets back on that 3-day cooldown before you can craft something again. It doesn't solve the fast pace. You wouldn't be able to do it a lot during a fast-paced campaign, but at least you wouldn't have to commit 3 days to crafting a level 2 item, and then when you finally finish it, you're level 4. So yeah, there's my crazy over-the-top thoughts on the new crafting rules. It's clear I'm not a fan, but I do, as always, want to hear what you think. Do you like the new crafting rules? Do you think they aid the existing crafting system in any way? Do you see yourself using the fancy proficiency-based, level-based, changing days of crafting system? Or are you just going to stick to your own classic 4-day crafting like the system's base? Or do you have your own homebrew crafting that I would like to hear about? If your table has a unique crafting system, let me know in the comments. I want to hear about it. That's all from me. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. I apologize again for being so negative, but look forward to the next few weeks. I've got some awesome Treasure Vault content coming out, and I'm going to be a lot more positive. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and until next time, no nat ones.